The law finally caught up. Every AAA company is in trouble. Wow, what is this? Blizzard's on this list here. We got Rivals, T2 EA, Activision. The punishment is here. Let's see what's being punished.
Welcome back, everyone. Today's video is a true bombshell for the games industry. This is one of those things that can have true impact, so let me explain. What just happened is the European Union just rewrote the rules on premium currency in games. Of course, that's the home of Ubisoft, of CD Projekt, of DICE, of Remedy, and so many other companies.
So this is a currency
thing.
Make
no mistake, the new rules that they have just laid out could change gaming utterly.
With this action, the CPC network emphasizes the need for video games and their commercial practices to be adapted to children and not exploit their vulnerabilities. I don't know if this... you can't really say the WoW token is exploitative. It's not, but loot boxes and shit like that sure are. So let's see.
Actually change the games that you play. So you know those bundles where you've got to buy more currency than the item that you want costs?
Right,
or perhaps the idea of limited time events, of no refunds and digital purchases. These are all being fought against by legislators. And when the EU takes action, it's a large enough block that it can reverberate around the world.
Yeah, he's right.
And as evidence, how's that USB-C charger on our phone working out?
Yeah, he's totally, he makes a great point. Like, most people watch this and say, well, I live in the US, so how's this going to affect me? Your iPhone's a great example of how it's going to affect you. These companies aren't going to run different game plans on different continents, okay? They're just going to try to run, for cost purposes, you're going to try to minimize change across your different continents. You just want to have one platform doing everything the same way. So yeah, if changes occur in Europe, they're going to affect North America, South America, Africa, everywhere else too. Australia, you and your fucking country, continent shit that you got going on down there, you'll be affected too.
There's a lot to talk about. Strap in. This one could actually, honestly, be pretty fucking good. Oddly enough, you've got EU legislation to thank for the standardized phone charger situation, and for many,
this affects Overwatch not really well. Yeah, I agree.
Play ROMs on their iPhone. But now we seem to have EU legislation to thank for premium currency being threatened. So here's what went on. In September 2024, the EU proposed the Digital Fairness Act that was targeting all the practices online that make using digital services miserable. And in particular, it called out dark patterns in video games as one of the targets. And that's basically the gross manipulative techniques that trick and strong-arm money out of people.
Right.
Obviously, especially...
Well, could we say the crafting system does this? Well, why not? You run out of money, you want to craft, you need more resources, you could go out and grind them, or you could eliminate that grind by going and buying a WoW token. Yeah, maybe you're being manipulated into that, I don't know. Maybe what I say about the crafting system's true. I don't know. But no, overall, I would say, yeah, this doesn't affect WoW as much on the back end. I'm just trying to pull fucking at this shit, but really, it's the loot boxes. Loot boxes are the biggest freaking gambling grind shit fest that gaming has ever seen.
To people who are not yet adults. And this is fairly weighty because in the EU alone, games are obviously big business. Revenues have been going up in the EU. Online game spending in 2018 represented 74% of turnover coming from online revenue, and 83% by 2022. That's all of those fun, dark patterns actually working and getting digital currency money out of people. But those dark patterns target the most vulnerable people the most. And there's no one more vulnerable in the eyes of the law than children. Children who spend an average of €31 a month on online games, according to data from Video Games Europe. Well, that's actually went down from 2023. I guess that's good. Everyone's feeling a little bit of the economic pinch. But
I mean, my son has felt this same pressure. He's 7 years old, be playing Fortnite, and he knows, like, he wanted to get Dr. Doom, like the skin. He wanted to get the skin in Fortnite, but it's a limited time thing, right? It's a seasonal thing. So if he doesn't get it during that season, it's going to go away. And as the season approached its end, he felt more and more pressure to come tell me, oh, Dad, we got to buy the skin before the season ends. I want the Dr. Doom skin and all that. So, you know, like that seasonal pressure, these little kids do feel it for sure.
It's not stopped the EU from taking action to protect kids, basically, from predatory premium currency models. And in situations like this, there's often a great offender, right, that is held up as an example of something doing everything wrong. So you might wonder, is it an Activision game? Is it Ultimate Team from the EA football games? Maybe it was Roblox. No. No, today, it's a game about horses. It's called Star Stable. You've probably never heard of it.
Oh my god.
But if this all does turn out good...
What in the furry hell is this? What is going on here? This is definitely... Are we protecting furries? Is that what this is all about? Are furries the most vulnerable of our society now?
Heard of it. But if this all does turn out good...
Yeah, it's like My Little Pony game, right? Gaden's here at home now.
This is Star Stable Online. It comes from a Swedish developer called Star Stable Entertainment, and it is the game that may have just rewritten rules and monetization in the EU. So, yeah, thanks, Horse Girls. Now, it turns out that Star Stable just uses...
Horse girls are a vulnerable group, too, I guess. Yeah, I had a horse girl. I still remember in elementary school. She loved horses. Everything. Her little notebook, her crayons, her colored pencils. And to be fair, I think her family did live on a farm, like they did have horses, so her horse obsession was kind of valid. But yeah, horsey girls, pony girls, I gotta watch out, gotta protect them.
All of the premium currency tactics in the book, which makes it a pretty awesome example, right? Especially because it is targeted at a younger
playing
audience.
This right now.
So in March 24, the Swedish Consumer Agency filed a complaint with the EU-wide Consumer Protection Cooperation Network. That's a mouthful. And that complaint alleged that Star Stable Entertainment were targeting children and using harmful commercial practices that breached EU consumer regulations.
Ooh.
Now, the findings corroborated much of...
What did this say? As a child, you should be able to play without risking being cheated in this way. Okay.
Now,
I wonder what they're doing. I want to know.
Corroborated much of those allegations. They found that the game made direct appeals to children in their ads, that they were using pressuring techniques like FOMO, which is particularly despicable when it's not, on adults.
Yeah.
And there was a lack of transparency on purchases and loads more things. I mean, here's an example of one that's particularly...
I mean, FOMO exists in all markets. You can look at Amazon Prime Day or Black Friday, like all of these, buy it now or you won't get it at the same price. All these flash sales and all that shit. That's all FOMO stuff. But as an adult, you can make responsible decisions, hopefully, and decide whether or not you want to make your purchase. Children, like I said, my 7-year-old, he legitimately, he had a rising anxiety as the season approached its end that he needed to get this skin. So that's what happens with kids. They don't understand responsibly spending or anything like that. They just know the game is telling them, you need to buy this now or it's going to go away. And that's unfortunate.
Be rough. They were responsible
kids
for
shouldn't be targets of FOMO. I agree.
The game to kids without any disclosure of the spending risk. So in short, it's bloody well damning. Star Stable Entertainment now have a month to address complaints and
Epic Games
with their
Wait,
game.
did Epic Games didn't make the pony game, right? No. I know they make Fortnite. Who's the hell? I don't think they make the pony game.
But what matters for our purposes today is the Consumer Protection Cooperation Network, we can just call the CPCN. They have laid out what they want. So I'll spell it out.
It's on the Epic Games Store? Oh, okay.
This is what should happen in the ideal world. You, dear gamer, want to buy yourself a new horse. You see that your new horse costs 300 star coins. The store tells you that's around £5, so it just lets you buy 300 coins exactly. You buy exactly what you need for the horse, rather than the current bundles that exist of 200 coins or 400 coins, meaning that you always have to buy with some wastage, which just ends up giving the company more money.
Yeah, Nintendo did this for a while. I don't know if you guys had the earliest versions of the Switch, but when they first launched that whole Nintendo Online shit, right, you actually, bought your online membership with Nintendo currency. So, even, it still exists now, but the difference is now they implemented where you can legitimately buy the amount of currency that you need to purchase your online membership. Whereas before, it was the online membership was $5 or $10 and something cents, but they were making you purchase $15 worth of currency, and you always had leftover currency. And I always felt shitty about that. I was like, what the hell is this? Why can't I just buy the fucking membership directly? Why do I got to purchase a side currency and in excess and then get the fucking thing? They changed that, and probably because they saw shit like this coming.
In short, no obfuscation bullshit, no weird tactics.
I'd spend 300 coins on the Majestic
Beast. Worst of all, for these companies, this will have them bloody well shaking. You'd have to have a refund policy, both for the coins and the horse.
Damn.
And none of this would be pitched as a limited time event where you have got to get the thing right now.
For 1 week only, wow.
That's an example then of how these policies should be applied, and each is indeed a massive win for consumers. But that would not matter if this amounted to nothing. You could look at all this and think, right, so some Swedish horse game has got a slap on the wrist. No, it's more than that. This seems to have backbone. So here's the big important bit. These solutions are the backbone of what the European Consumer Organization calls key principles for trustworthy gaming environments. And these could cause huge problems for anyone who is using premium currency. When I say this could shake the foundations of the game industry economy, I absolutely mean it. So these, which I'm going to spell out for you, are the minimum requirements for purchasing and using virtual currencies in the EU. And what's needed...
You know what's good about this, if you want to relate it to WoW, is this will stop Blizzard from ever putting Trader's Tender on the store. Because that would be a direct violation of all of this. Because technically, Trader's Tender is for purchasing limited time items, right? You only got it for that month. So if Blizzard ever wanted to take Trader's Tender, which is a digital currency, and put it on the WoW store for people to purchase directly with real money, that would fall directly into this same guise, where you'd be pressuring people to purchase a digital currency, to purchase a digital item that has a limited shelf life on it, right? So that same shit. So this at least will stop. While it's not as relevant to World of Warcraft just yet, it'll stop these kinds of issues from ever happening.
Is the philosophy behind
because
it.
You know for a fact that shit is being thought of, and if Bobby was still there, it would have already happened. That's for sure.
So the CP,
because when you convert fake money into when you convert real money into a fake currency, you can lose track of the value of the real money. Yeah, that's why they do it, for sure. That's the purpose of converting a Canadian dollar into beaver bucks. And leaving some beaver bucks behind makes you spend some more. Yeah, it's very true. That's why digital currencies exist. It's easier to spend them. You lose track of them. It doesn't feel the same as when you spend real hard-earned cash. Sam, don't talk about Daddy Blizz like that. Yeah.
ECN considers these premium currencies
as
an equivalent to the real money that is used to purchase them. And that for them means that they are just as worthy of legal scrutiny. So you can see how that is, in a way, a mindset shift that paves the way for actually treating these as they are. So just think about the last game that you played that had a premium currency in it. Whatever that game is, I want you to keep it in mind. And with that in your mind, I'm now going to go through the various different practices that this targets. So, prices for premium currency packs that are a little more than the available product. So you've got to buy extra coins, extra gems.
That's always bullshit.
Obfuscation of how much currency is worth by always pairing currency with other items or multiple currency options. As an example, I think World of Warcraft may actually fall for that because it includes Trader's Tender in one of the new mounts.
I did not pre-watch this, guys, but I just got a brain that works giga-fast. It's a giga-chad brain. I'm just always 10 steps ahead. And so, yeah, of course, Trader's Tender falls directly in this. They will have to take Trader's Tender off the stores. These packages will no longer be legal. Well, at least in Europe, and that just means they're just not going to offer it.
Bundles. Another one. A complete lack of a refund option for making currency purchases or even for in-game items. So there would have to be a refund policy. That's something none of us are used to in these games. Also, FOMO practices to encourage buying.
Yep,
those
FOMO
are
practices
going to be looked at.
The only problem is that companies will just jack up the prices of games to compensate for the loss of money. Yeah, I mean, but the purchase of a game is a single-time purchase. You can only go so high with that. We already saw Nintendo's doing that. Yes, you were right, Cam Shady. That is coming. But by the way, that's coming no matter what. So the prices going up to $80, $90 games, like that's coming our way. But that's a single-time purchase. That's something that you can't raise. There's a ceiling on it. Eventually, you're going to price people out. With microtransactions, the issue is it's like a little leaky faucet. You don't notice it's happening. You don't notice the damage that's occurring until it's far too late and you've already spent a shit ton of money. A single purchase, like a faucet just blowing a fucking gasket, now you got to get all that shit fixed. That's much harder on a person. That's much more, I don't know, calculable. Like, people notice that it's happening more. So it's a different type of thing. They can only go so high with their initial purchase price of the game. Whereas with microtransactions, they can just milk you fucking dry.
So some of those may no longer be allowed. And all of these
Nintendo's setting the bar there.
Something that the EU can hold against developers and publishers. Even more so if the parental controls of said game are not up to scratch. So it's less a case of me saying, can you think of any game that falls into those categories? And it's more me saying, can you think of a game that doesn't fall into those criteria?
He's right. think they fucking all do.
Humongous, which might indeed be the point here. We know this is something the EU have been thinking about in other circumstances than just Star Stable. As an example, in September 2024, the European Consumer Organization published a report on popular online games. And in that report, they targeted Diablo 4, EA Sports FC 24, Minecraft, Fortnite, and a bunch of others. And it was all about how the virtual currencies work. They were not thrilled on what they found in those games, right? Because many of them, well, they did the same things that, Star Stable did that we do not like. And that straight up means we can say that Electronic Arts and Blizzard Entertainment are being directly targeted by this body. That really is something. So it's no wonder that the BEUC will be holding workshops to help European companies implement these new principles. Because it seems they may actually have to implement them. Everything that they previously thought was acceptable pretty much now isn't. And here's the shocking thing, that's not my commentary. That is what the industry response has been, so we know they are shaking in their boots.
I wonder what the response will be. They'll either have to eliminate digital currency completely or eliminate the FOMO of limited time items. So they'll either have to keep items like available forever, which in and of itself will lessen the value of that item, because part of the value of an item is its limitedness, right? Its rarity. So if the item's less rare, it's in essence worth less money. So they'll have to charge less for all these items, or they're just going to have to charge cold hard cash and get rid of the digital currency.
Surprising the industry bodies aren't thrilled about this. And a big shout out to one of our Belgrade Games members, Neo Nebulosa, for directing us to this.
Nice ass. That's great. That was a good pause.
The European Game Developers Federation and the Video Games Europe, or two groups basically, they've published a joint statement that expresses their disappointment with the findings. Let's read their statement. Quote, "We are disappointed by the lack of engagement from the CPC network in creating these principles, which introduce new legal theories and misguided interpretations of EU consumer law that will create confusion and disruption for European customers." Sidebar. Oh no, we're going to be disrupted by sort of annoying predatory stuff going away. What an awful disruption. Back to the statement. It will also present a challenge to the industry's future growth and could even deprive millions of consumers access to their favorite games. Now that last bit is the interesting thing.
What?
So understandably, right? These groups, representing the most powerful players in the industry, did quite like things the way that they were. Change is dangerous.
They're threatening to pull the games from Europe. Is that what they're doing essentially there? Come on, you're not going to do that.
To the bottom line, and especially change like this. But in a way,
I wonder where actually Europe ranks in terms of gaming. What would you call it? Like, let's see. I'm going to ask AI here. Let's see where the hell they would rank. Country, gaming, markets ranked. Countries ranked. Hold on. Countries ranked by gaming markets. I hope it understands me. Forpo, it's gathering its resources, doing its thing. The gaming market rankings shift depending. Okay, China, top list, massive market. Yep, United States, Japan, South Korea. Okay, Germany. So you got Germany, UK, France, Canada, Italy. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 of the top 10 are European countries. So in terms of market share, so there's no way they're just going to eliminate 4 of their top 10 countries and say they're going to pull their games from Europe. That's absolutely crazy. Yeah, not a chance. That's just an empty threat.
It is true that audiences do actually understand premium currencies by and large right now, and when implementing currencies, these companies
Samiccus, the worst one. It's the most accessible one right now.
Guidance, and now that guidance has changed.
At work, I use Copilot all the time. It's amazing, but you got to pay for that shit.
I guess just like how so many
phones
have
like
a bespoke charging cable until the rules just changed in the middle of the game. So now they've got to get used to these new rules. And what'll sting is the impact on their bottom line. They're not wrong about the potential impacts of all of this. Now, big companies like Ubisoft can probably absorb the costs of any legal challenges or damage from rebuilding their premium currency systems. They'll probably spend a whole lot to try and figure out ways around these principles.
Yeah.
As for smaller companies, well, they may not find that so easy.
I'll tell you exactly how these companies do it. We deal with it with tariffs right now. They assemble a legal team, and their literal goal is to circumvent all these rules. So they will read deep into it. They'll try to figure out like, okay, if we do this and do this, if we send this to this country and then go around and then turn it to Bitcoin and then reconvert it back into our currency, that we get around this shit. That's what they're gonna do. That's what they're gonna do. So these that's why these laws have to be like fucking airlock tight. Because these damn lawyers, man, most corrupt people in this world, they're out there trying to figure this shit out.
But where things will be dramatic is the group's final warning, because it's the most threatening one. It's the idea that players in the EU may just be locked out of video games.
Just use ChatGPT like a normal person.
A game like Overwatch, right? That they would simply choose to geo-restrict access to the game rather than change their monetization model, or to just continue the game as normal and risk EU lawsuits. It could just be they look at the EU and think, you know what, we make enough from the States and other countries, we really don't need them. That being said, the EU population is kind of huge.
Yeah.
Overall GDP is obviously...
So I'm saying they're not going to just eliminate the EU market. That's absolutely ridiculous. Is Copilot good? You have it free for... Yeah, Copilot's really good. At least from when I've used it for work, it's really, really good.
Very, very flawed metric. But as an example, right, just Googling this here in 2024, the EU's nominal GDP was about 17.9 trillion and 1/6 of global nominal GDP, which is quite a lot of money.
Yeah.
And a hell of a lot of that GDP globally will be in other countries like, say, China, where a lot of these companies will not be able to go in and directly monetize. That could actually mean that they will feel the need to change. And in a way, there are two wolves inside me who are fighting, right? I suppose one of them is the pragmatic wolf. The other one is the almost like the last vestiges of some sort of libertarian idealism that's...
Did he just admit to being a furry? He's got two wolves inside of him? Yeah, furry. I don't know. Bellular the furry.
Let the market decide. If the gamers do not like the bad practices, the gamers shall not partake in them.
Right.
And the market will solve the problem. And
that's fine. He's right. Let gamers decide. He's right. But you're talking about adults deciding. Children don't have that kind of decision-making process. They're just going to get pressured into buying shit. And that's what this whole thing is about. It's about protecting the kids, not protecting adults from buying digital currency. You're not going to stop some fucking John off the street from buying Bitcoin off of Robinhood. That shit's still going to happen. But he made that decision. It's his responsibility to deal with the fallout if it does happen. The other shit, though, kids, they don't understand decision making and responsibility and knowing the weight of their decisions. That's what these laws are all about.
I wish that was true.
Because kids play games.
But I feel there's almost a faux idealism in so much of that, because these psychological hooks, these psychological triggers, they do actually work. We're in a world where you can very easily make, I think, some sound enough, philosophical arguments very much against regulation and all of that. And I totally get that. I'm fairly sympathetic towards that in many cases. But the thing is, we've also got to be pragmatic. And a part of that is being a bit humble about the human condition. And the fact of the matter is, these practices are not popular. People do not like them. Yet, people's behavior does continue.
Yeah.
And these obviously are bad. And as people who enjoy video games, we see that as these types of practices derive more and more revenue, they then become what the companies focus on.
It's true. I mean, people don't like getting milked, right? They don't like getting milked for every dollar they're worth, and yet people will continue to spread their legs and get milked. That comment went somewhere. I didn't know. Was going. Okay.
And that is worse for the actual video games.
Just because they know it's bad for them doesn't mean they're going to stop.
How much of game industry revenue comes essentially from psychological manipulation and these various business strategies that are designed to rake in revenue in a way that's not like really tied to the experience of a game that you purchase? We've just seen the share of that increase and increase and increase. And it's no wonder that as that is increased, the rest of us have become less and less satisfied with games. So in a way, if this does hurt the revenue of a bunch of companies and unfortunately leads to a bunch of job losses because these types of practices are no longer viable, good riddance. Good riddance, absolutely. Let the companies fail, let those jobs go down. How we run things should be a dialogue.
Or they're just going to convert it to real currency. I mean, Blizzard does it with, the Long Boy. Look at the Long Boy. That was $90, cold hard cash, no digital currency in between the transaction. That would still be legal under this. And it was a limited time thing, right? The pressure to get the mounted as it went. And that fucking thing made them more money than the damn expansion itself did. So there's proof out there that just going with cold hard cash currency, it could still work. You can still manipulate people into buying. And I guarantee you, there were a lot of kids out there, maybe 13, 14-year-olds, who used mom or dad's credit card to buy the Long Boy. Yeah, it happened.
Between the
It's a
private
very
and public
successful thing for
sectors, and in a
Blizzard.
case like this, I think it's an example of the public
And no one
sector,
complained about it.
right?
We low-key
The
groaned,
people
but we all bought
essentially
it.
saying, we actually do not like this practice. We don't want this to be the rules of the game. We want the rules of the game to change, to be more robust. And yeah, the market will, once it adapts to that, find a solution. And if the new rule set is a better rule set...
You are one of them, right? No, I'm not 14, but I mean, I actually didn't buy it. I gifted it to my stream. Somebody won it in my stream, but I did not, I don't own it personally.
Then that should be a net
I did buy it.
But of course, none of this will matter if there's no enforcement. Enforcement, because one country making a digital consumer policy often will find difficulty in enforcing it because you're just one little guy, Mr. Belgium, right? That's why even though Belgium has banned loot boxes, so many games simply just ignore that and still operate in the country. Like in World of Warcraft in the new raid, one of the bosses is basically a slot machine boss. We always have the joke that for the person in our team that's in Belgium, that boss just can't drop any loot. I don't know, there's an EU firewall or a Belgian firewall.
Yeah, that's pretty funny.
That's a joke, but you get the point. As much as many people have kind of went, Belgium, you, take him down. It hasn't really mattered because it's just Belgium, just one little guy. It's a bit different here, though. And that's because the EU is, 26 other countries.
Yeah, we just looked at it. 4 of the top 10 markets for gaming are in Europe, so it's much bigger than just one.
And also Belgium. In 2023, it was worth 25.7 billion euro in game revenues. That's a lot of revenues. And we know that their legislators are willing to take on the likes of Apple and Google when their rulings are being defied. They have done that. But more than that, the companies inside the EU are, part of a big global network, and that does mean that whenever USB-C cables become standardized in the EU, they then become standardized everywhere because of manufacturing
iPhone has USB-C now.
I'm sure Apple would have loved to have continued just selling people Lightning adapters in the States, but ultimately they seem to have saw the way the wind was blowing and made the big change to USB-C. No one wanted to have, of course, a whole factory just making EU-only phones. And again, thinking about the impact that would have had on the whole ecosystem of manufacturing partners, blah, blah, blah. So you can see how with hardware, it does kind of make sense. We can see, though, software examples where it's not really the same thing. It's not like you can just go and get an emulator for your iPhone in America, but you can in the EU. So the question then is, will developers want to risk losing a large slice of that EU-derived money? Or will they simply have to ship a cut-down and less exploitative version of their in-game monetization to European countries? If so, it puts them in a fun little dilemma where the American gamer may get a transparently worse deal than, say, the European gamer. Mm-hmm. And then
isn't USB-C proprietary, though? I don't know how long I'm sure it was invented and patented by somebody. Whether or not that patent has already run its course, I don't know. I'd have to look up the exact patent for whoever invented USB-C style of charging or port or whatever and find out. Those things only last 20 years. So once that 20 years runs, anybody could use the technology. Now, if it's still patented, right, but it becomes a standard, and I know all about this shit. Now you're getting into my realm. It becomes a standard essential patent, which means everybody is being forced to practice that standard. So say Johnny down the street owns the USB-C patent. Now he is forced to license it at a FRAND rate, which is considered like a reasonable rate, to everybody in the industry. So essentially everyone in the industry pays to use the USB-C license, and everyone uses it. That's how that shit works. So yes, proprietary technology could be forced upon everybody, and then the government basically ensures that the rate that is charged to everybody is fair and reasonable, so everyone can still profit. That's how that shit works. But I don't know how, if the USB-C patent still even exists. You'll be surprised. Some of this shit was invented a long time ago, and those patents have already run their course, and then everyone can just use it for free.
And say, well, compare your store to mine. My one is a bit more respectful. Doesn't have as much
company
fun,
that promotes USB-C technology, including Apple.
Bundles.
There you go. So it was created by a group. So that would mean that it's owned across the board by everybody, and then they license it out. So that's those groups are usually called consortiums, and they're giant groups of companies that basically create a standard, and then what they do is they make sure that they're the ones who created the standard, so that way nobody in the industry has to pay anything. Right? That's how that shit usually works.
Things that basically feel like a scam, and that'll be a bad look. That's the dilemma that these companies face, and in a way, it's all thanks.
So they can also be talking about for once.
So, Hero of the day?
Sometimes.
Horse girls. I guess that's a thing. Okay, tell you what though, if you want another story,
Horse girls.
another big, grand, juicy story, check out this one. It also hits the EU, but it also hits corporate melodrama, which is honestly some of my favorite.
This is pretty good. It was a nice video, informative video. We learned a bunch of shit here. In-game currencies could be at risk. Obviously, the FOMO events could be at risk. And we learned that Bellular has 2 furries inside of him. So there you go. I mean, all important shit that we need to know going forward. And change is coming, boys. Change is coming. At least we know the Trader's Tender will never be on the WoW store based on these laws. Good video.